Hello, extra time.
Point to the league not to get a high because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
Simple look, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credit in the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny down to manage the Irish team.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Extratime Football Podcast. Your host Luke Jordan, by Macdara Ferris once again joins you. Macdara, how are you?
I'm very good, Luke. How are you getting on?
I'm fine. Season 12, episode 25 this week. We're going to take a slight detour maybe before we talk about football because it was the Olympics was on and you were at the Olympics, Macdara.
Yeah, I'm suffering my post-Olympic come down now after spending about 6 days out in Paris. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was kind of a trip long in the planning, kind of because I got tickets back in February of last year. It was quite a complicated ticketing process. You got like this 48-hour window to buy tickets in batches of 3. So, and not everything was available at the same time. So I kind of had to pad it out a little bit with a couple of football matches that I was never really going to go to, one down in Lyon and one in Paris. But there was a resale, so you could sell some tickets. So yeah, got to see volleyball early on Saturday morning, Dominican Republic against the Netherlands, some beach volleyball under the Eiffel Tower, absolutely amazing sunset on the Saturday night. And then I timed it to go across to the weekend when the road cycling was on, and both the men's and the women's race finished with a 3-lap climb around Sacré-Cœur. So you could actually see them on 3 loops, which is really good. And it was absolutely packed, particularly for the men's race, but even for the women's race, where you were literally rubbing shoulders with the best cyclists in the world. And on the Saturday, Ben Heady and Ryan Mullen, the 2 Irish riders that were riding the men's race, really animated the race. So it was brilliant to be able to kind of wave the tricolours of them. And then went to 3 sessions of the athletics, including one of the evening sessions, where I saw the 1500 metre final was probably the best, or kind of most memorable one. People, Inga Britson against Kerr, and then the American nipped through while those 2 boys were giving out about one another to win the 1500 metres. So a good few of the Irish kind of competing in the 400. Wasn't around for the relays or Rashida Adeleke, but yeah, it was really good, really enjoyable, and really good example of kind of what a city can do with the Olympics. They basically built hardly anything new for the tournament, used a huge amount of the existing facilities, and it was a city big enough that could kind of cope with the people that had come over for the Olympics. A lot of Parisians had left for the couple of weeks to kind of get away, and so actually it was quite a pedestrian friendly Paris, and everyone was just in a really good humor. It's you got chatting to people what events they'd gone to, what were they planning to go to, and it's a bit different from a football crowd. We're obviously used to quite a vociferous kind of 2 teams playing, and I love that kind of atmosphere, but actually the athletics is really good. Somebody's always cheering for somebody. You're not really cheering against anyone, and it's probably an event where, say, the road cycling was something where it was kind of hard to follow what was going on. So many people on 3G, it was kind of hard to follow on your phone how the race was going. So it's an example of something where going to see it live, you're actually, if you want to follow it, you're better off watching it on television. But actually track and field athletics, I always say to people, is something that's actually better going to it. And there's always 2 or 3 events happening at the same time, so you can watch them at the same time, whereas on television, they're kind of cutting from one to the other. And then in the stadium, they have commentators, so they're telling you what's going on. They've 2 big screens, so you get all the replays. So it's golf again is something that's, golf is good to go and see as a spectator, but you won't follow it. You really have to be watching it on the television. But track and field is a really good event to go to, and is a great day out. I'd recommend it to anyone.
What was your favourite event you've seen?
Probably the beach volleyball was just quite interesting. Obviously the women were wearing the most skimpy teamwear possible. There's no getting away from that, but it was just the setup. We went to see men's quarterfinal and a women's quarterfinal, and they just built this pop-up stadium. I'm sure people saw it on the television. 12,000 seated under the Eiffel Tower with this spectacular sunset. The stewards eventually just gave up, telling people to sit down as they were trying to get their Instagram images, and were busy helping them take their pictures. And then something's always happening. The DJ is blasting tunes out in between. Everyone's getting going. The crowd get going. Obviously you had your Mexican wave, but you had your slow Mexican wave, which I hadn't seen done before, which was actually quite entertaining as it went around the stadium. And then maybe moving away from something that isn't jokey, we watched the Dutch play Brazil, and it was like, why are the Brazilian fans booing one of the Dutch players? And then looked it up. The Dutch had selected this guy, Steven van der Velde, who'd actually served 2.5 years for rape of a 12-year-old girl. As I say, this is not a nice story at all. And the Dutch had chosen him to represent their team. I was flabbergasted by it. Certainly that would not happen in Ireland. There's no way we'd let someone like that represent Ireland. So everyone basically rolled in behind the Brazilians in that men's game, and Brazil won and the Dutch got knocked out. So yeah, it was a little bit, bit of a slight tangent, but it just made for a very interesting evening. And it was an event quite late at night, so it kind of started at 9 o'clock and went on till kind of past 11:30, and then just kind of strolling out by the Eiffel Tower to get down, and everyone in kind of good humor and enjoying the games, whether your team was winning or your country was winning or not. Everyone seemed to be in a good mood.
Yeah, well, speaking of winning, I suppose from the Irish point of view, 7 medals. I mean, 9 medalists. You want to put it another way, obviously with the rowing. Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic show for the Irish athletes this year. Finished 19th overall in the medal table. Like, and bringing on 4 gold is no mean feat. Yeah,
it's absolutely brilliant. I was feeling my age watching Sophie O'Sullivan run around the track in the 1500 meters. I think it was 1500 meters. Yeah, it was 1500 meters, because I'd been in Athens 20 years previously to cheer on her mother running, and so. But I remember that games quite well, obviously, because I attended it. But it was. We spent about 5 or 6 days in Athens, and then spent a week north of Athens, and picking up a newspaper on a bus, because we're talking about 2004, I think. Yeah, 2004. I'd seen that Ireland had won a medal, and it was Cian O'Connor had won a equestrian medal, which of course we lost because the horse had been done for doping. Insert whatever joke you want to put in here. And we'd bought tickets for the rowing, and because our lightweight pair were the world champions, and the expectation was that they'd win a medal for the finals. And classic Ireland at that stage, they had a uncalibrated weighing scales, and when they weighed themselves that morning, they were within whatever the lightweight section was, and then they went to do the official one. They were actually overweight and couldn't row in the final, and it was they were so certain they were going to win, but the view was that they were going to win a medal, that actually Pat Hickey was there that day to give the medal, so he obviously wasn't giving them out to Ireland. And I remember actually finding that day difficult, because it was like there was one Irish team. It was maybe a 4-woman team in a final, and that was it. And everyone else was cheering around them: the Germans, the Dutch, the British. And Jesus, we weren't winning anything. And say we won the one medal that year, and then we was stripped away, and so we won nothing 20 years ago. And then it's just been a gradual turnaround. We've talked a lot about investments in football funding, but the investment within Sports Campus Ireland has been really, really important. And the funding is paying dividends, which is really, really good. And so it's just been brilliant. And just chatting to various people, everyone was interested. Oh yeah, how'd you get on the Olympics? Everyone seemed to be watching it, even if you weren't really into the various sports. You just got sucked in, and a lot of that was to do with the time zone. It was really good for us in terms of watching it. It'll be different in LA and different in Brisbane, as it was different, in Rio and in Beijing. But it was also that Ireland were doing so well, and talk about kind of lifting the mood of a nation. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of there's 2 points there really to pick up on. I mean, the funding part, which we always bang about football, but it's for all sport really. That again, Ireland is great. I mean, the government grant system. I think Thomas Byrne was talking about earlier on today off the ball. We're asking questions on again. Like, I mean, the amount of funding in sport in general, Ireland's very low compared to other European Union countries, which we know. And I suppose the other points there. I mean, Irish athletes competing and being competitive in their disciplines, it makes it much more interesting for the public here to follow on. And this, I think it was interesting. This is some of the commentary coming from RT and the coverage, and they were speaking about, this is the strike where the iron's hot. Like, this is the time when people need to really now kind of bang the drum for investment in other sports, not just football. Obviously we are very biased. We want more investment in football, leave Ireland Academy's one, but other sports too that we seen as minority sports maybe not getting the funding too.
Yeah, and the talk, just listening to some of the commentary over the last couple of days, the likes of Carl Denny, who did some really good work for the Independent, Gavin Cooney, Sinead Carroll with the Journal, talking about funding for coaching. Then that's the next step, that we've lost a lot of our really high quality coaches, because actually they could go elsewhere and earn a full-time living. So it's investing in our athletes to make sure that they're well funded. And if you look at the medals that we won, were kind of expected, with maybe the exception of probably Mona McSharry, but these were all, like Kelly Harrington, world champion, Donovan and McCarthy, world champions in the sport, Daniel Whiffen, world champion, European champion, that they had won medals in their sport. And so coming to the Olympics, having got that funding, coming to the Olympics, that was the expectation. But so it's also then funding within facilities. So it's great to see funding secured for the velodrome. Lara Gillespie finished 10th in the Omnium, and we don't even have a velodrome in Ireland, but the velodrome will be dual purpose, because it'll serve badminton, and people would have seen that in Yen, I pronounce his name wrong, but playing for Ireland in badminton. So actually the velodrome will have badminton courts in the middle, and so it's multi-purpose. So and it's about capitalizing this and making sure that we spend this money. But I think there's a greater will for it now. I think people, they know we need to invest in housing, in the healthcare, but actually this is a good investment as well. And the sooner the levy is maybe widened, the betting levy is widened away from horse racing, and particularly greyhound racing, the better.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you a huge sports fan and want to learn more about the business of sports? The events, deals, media, or how leaders got started in their career? On the Farrell Sports Business Podcast, I talk to athletes, agents, marketers, TV execs, PR pros, and CEOs. I'm the host, Matt Farrell. I have worked 30 years in sports, including my Farrell Sports Consulting business. Join me for interviews with these industry unicorns. Go to your favorite podcast spot and look for the Farrell Sports Business Podcast.
Yeah, so maybe just one quick word maybe on Kelly Harrington. Very rare we have a double Olympic gold medalist, and we have one now again with Kelly Harrington, phenomenal athlete who's retired obviously after her victory in Paris. Yeah,
it was brilliant, because I saw most of her fights on the telly, and she dominated them. She dominated all the fights and deserved to win. And it was great to see. I hadn't realized that the final was then been switched to Roland Garros, where Djokovic, I think, had won the medal like 2 days before. Again, a really good example of Paris using these facilities. And she was just brilliant. And her reaction afterwards, I just was absolutely brilliant, and her tears on the podium with the medal, and it was great to see. Just maybe one final thing I might mention, because it's kind of football related. Did go to see the hockey on the Sunday morning, China against Australia and Germany against Argentina, which went to penalty shootout, which was great. But actually the hockey stadium is in the original 1924 Olympic Stadium from when the Olympics happened 100 years ago. So the stand is still the same with a new roof, but it's where the athletics and where the opening ceremony is held. And it's where people may have seen in the last couple of months the recognition that the Olympic Ireland football team got full caps for their matches. So they became the first Irish Olympians, because the football, both 100 years ago and this year, competition actually started before the opening ceremony. And so the first Irish athletes under the tricolour for the Free State was actually our football team. They beat Bulgaria in round 2. So not much left of the stadium. They had a few pictures of the original stadium out there, and it was great to see. But I was mainly trying to find some shade during that day. It was like 30 degrees. It was so hot. The stewards had like these big kind of like Rocket Man, like handing out beer, but actually it was water, and they were pumping water out over the spectators because it was just so hot. You were sitting out there, but yeah, it was where 100 years before Ireland had first competed at the Olympics. So yeah, it was nice to see that little bit of piece of Irish sporting history.
Yeah, if you want to read Macdara's thoughts on the Olympics being over there in Paris, check out extratime.com there and his postcards up from Paris 2024. Let's move to football then. We might start the European football. Since we last chatted, obviously, I was covering the Shelbourne and Zurich game. Obviously, Shelbourne did go out, but they kind of battled well and done well in Europe against a good side. Obviously, Rovers lost. Past did win last week, so maybe we'll start with Rovers. Your thoughts on the performance last week? I know the pitch was kind of the big talking point. Stephen Barry wasn't happy post match.
Yeah, he said it was the worst pitch he'd ever seen, and it was dangerous. It meant he left Jack Byrne on the bench, and he kind of limited Graham Burke's time on the pitch. But I asked about it. I was at the 1-1 draw with Drogheda United on Sunday night, and I asked him, will the pitch, how will the pitch be like in Tala now compared to that? And he said, well, he's under no illusions that, it was bad for both teams, and the Tala Stadium pitch will be good for both teams, and that they're playing against a very, very, very good team. But I think a 1-0 defeat was probably, a reasonable enough results. They did create some chances, but they did require probably 2 or 3 really good Leon Pole saves. But they're still very much in the tie. They've essentially banked 1.71 million to get to this stage and into the playoff round, whatever way that will be. But if they can go through on Thursday night, they'll get 3.87 million plus probably close to another million. So it's a match worth in excess of €2 million on Thursday night. And it's probably a little bit more important because they've got a difficult draw in the next round. So should they win, they're guaranteed group stage football in the Conference League, and then they play the loser of the Champions League tie between Malmo and PAOK. We're recording on Tuesday evening, and those two teams are playing. The first leg ended 2-2 in Sweden. So you'd have to say, that'd be a difficult one to get through. Rovers played PAOK back in 2011 and lost 2-1 away and 3-1 at home. But then if they lose on Thursday night, then they've got to play a team from, let me see, it's Armenia and it's Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan. I should know this, but I've forgotten. But it's a Kazakhstan team, and then it's Armenian team. So, that's difficult, even in terms of logistics, because that match is away first, and they're about as far away as you can get away from Dublin as well. So that'll be really difficult. So really, this is probably their best chance of group stage football is to win on Thursday night. But they didn't play well against Drogheda, and we have a bit of audio with Stephen Bradley, and we've also a bit of audio with Kevin Doherty just talking about that game. So it's a tough task that they have on Thursday, but it's some prize that they have ahead of them if they can win this match. And when they qualified for the Europa League in 2011, they won away in Belgrade. And when they qualified for the Conference League in 2022, it was a win away in North Macedonia. So this is a chance for them to get through. They've sold in excess of 5,000 tickets come kind of Tuesday morning. So they're expecting to presume to get a crowd up, above 6,000, maybe 7,000. And there'll be a very small number of away fans traveling for this one. So yeah, it's obviously a really, really big game. Really big game for Pats. Like, that was a great win. Like, looking at the coefficients, like we've got 5 wins and 4 draws. So we're going to earn more coefficient points this year than we did last year. And it's a 5-year scoring system, so we're losing the score from 6 years ago, which was lower than this. So, but they're still a bit off. Better than last year, but not as good as the year before, because obviously Rovers had got to the Conference League and drew some games. People seem to, I hear all this talk, Rovers didn't do well in the Conference League. They drew 2 matches, but anyway. So overall, you mentioned Shells there. Well, they did go out. It was good. Again, very credible draw that they got. And, Pats carry that 1-0 win to the away leg. I don't know how you feel about that game on Thursday, Luke.
Well, to be honest, and this is speaking to people after the match, and wherever the case be, my mates asking how Pats get on. That's one of the best Pats performances I've ever seen in Europe. To be honest with you, I mean, like, if anyone saw the game listening in, they would totally agree. If Pats won that game 4-0, no one would be going out going, that's a fluke. Like, that's a well-deserved 4-0 win. I mean, I can't describe how unlucky they were in the second half. I mean, Joe Redmond, ironically, could have got a hat-trick. And like, he was very unlucky. One of his headers hit the crossbar. One went just over the bar. I mean, one just keep made a great save. You know, Pats were brilliant in particular second half. Really took the game to them. And even the first half too, very good performance. So look, I think the big factor will be the second leg. Unfortunately, I think had they gone over the 2 or 3-0 lead, I think they were guaranteed to go through. The fear always going across to Eastern Europe is the heat, the time of kickoff. You know, like if it's 35 degrees in Baku, that's obviously going to cause a problem. So it's hard to know. I mean, if Pats obviously can draw the game, they go through naturally. So hopefully they can do that. But look, if they've done it in Liechtenstein, they got the draw, the 2-2 draw over there. So there's no reason why they can't do it in Baku. But again, it's going to be very difficult. I think with the conditions is kind of the big factor of the match. But I mean, like you're saying there, I think the most important thing for Irish football is always the coefficient. I mean, I don't think people realise the importance of the coefficient sometimes, and this could be questioned about maybe these Sunday games that had to be played. Again, obviously, Pat's bias maybe is on my head there, but I'd be thinking more in terms of, is it better for Pats to have that game off? Is it better for Rovers to play it? Can it advance them into competitions? It would help the league in terms of its league coefficient. Again, I don't blame the clubs necessarily. I blame the FEI for the lack of ruling around it. Again, I think that's just something maybe that I know, you know, there's going to be criticism about Pats' big squad, Rovers' big squad. They should be able to handle it. But just my own personal point of view, even if it was the way around, it was Galway or it was drawn in that situation, you want them to advance into far into Europe to get the coefficient points. I don't know where you stand on that point with
yeah, I think the difficulty is, you know, they played 2 games early in the season to front load the season to free up weekends in between the first and second legs, but you can't. And so they did that, but I don't think you can keep postponing games. But what I would say is, like, when the draws are made for the likes of the UEFA Nations League and the European qualifiers and the World Cup qualifiers within UEFA for the national teams, they have these kind of, I can't remember what the term is, but basically there's 2 teams can't be drawn in the same group where there's multiple long hauls. So you can't, Ireland couldn't be drawn in a group with a team from Armenia and Kazakhstan because of the difficulty of just trying to arrange those long haul flights with back-to-back games and things like that. And potentially they could look and maybe say, okay, well, if you're drawing a team from Kazakhstan, if you're drawing a team from one of the stands, and it is so difficult to get out there, like, you have to travel by chartered flight. So you know, Rovers flew directly out to their match in Slovenia, but when they flew home to refuel, they stopped just in Belgium and typically kind of land off the runway, refuel and on the go. But it's a really long way, as I say, to go to Kazakhstan. And maybe that's something that they could do, that they could basically put in something where they might recognize that if you're drawing a team and if Russia stops their war in Ukraine and Russia comes back in, that type of thing, if there's those longer flights. But otherwise, I think you just have to kind of go ahead and play the matches and just kind of get on with it. But the 3-day turnaround is particularly difficult with the away games. Not so difficult if it's a home game. So for, say, example, Rovers this week, they played you know, they came back from Slovenia, had to play the Sunday night, but then they're released home on this coming Thursday, and then they're not in the cup, so it seems, so they get a weekend off.
Yeah, well, what do you make of that appeal? Actually, a quick word on that.
I don't know.
Do you think they had a case?
Well, they did have a case. But I think both seemed to do what they needed to do, which is the right thing. They asked the FAI and the FAI made a ruling. So, and then the interpretation, like, you know, it's to do with this Mickey Mouse competition. And if we had a League Cup here, then he'd probably have served that suspension in the League Cup, but we don't have that anymore. Like, we have Leinster Senior Cup, Munster Senior Cup, so they're not really an equivalent. And it just seemed it kind of fell between. But I think there's a ruling made now, and now everyone knows what's the case. But I'm sure it didn't probably added to the bad blood between Bohemians and Shamrock Rovers. Like, Stephen Bradley was asked about it on Sunday night, and he said he hadn't heard anything from inside the club and that they were dealing with it, and he was just dealing with the matches. And he did say rules were broken, but it's open to interpretation. But it would have left a complete sour taste in the mouths for either club. For Shamrock Rovers fans, well, maybe they'd have been delighted just to knock Bows out that way, but it would have left a massive asterisk. But like, in terms of who the player was, they were very much involved in the game. It wasn't somebody that came on just for 5-10 minutes. But like, I don't know whether the Rovers are appealing it, but if they did appeal it, I think the way the independent ruling is, it's a different 3-person body, and potentially they might do it the other way. But the game is this coming Sunday. I think Bows fans have booked their train or booked their bus or booked their B&Bs down in Kerry, and probably should be let get on with it at this stage. I think that seems to be the way it's going to go down.
Yeah, I think my own unbiased opinion, if I can say, is that if the FAI made a rule initially, I don't think you can punish Bohemians. If they've gone to the FAI, seek the guidance, told me, I understand maybe where Rovers, they went there, obviously got legal advice and so on, but I do think if the FAI gave the go ahead, they were never going to reinstate in the competition, in my personal opinion. That's what I think. But anyway, we'll just move on. We'll just a quick listen to the audio Macdara picked up with Stephen Valley and Kevin Doherty. Let's have a listen.
In terms of the 3-day turnaround, last time against Waterford, you guys got a good result down in Waterford. What was the difference tonight against Drogheda United?
We just weren't good enough. We were slow and sloppy in everything we did. The team we played were good enough to win the game. We know that, but we were slow and sloppy. It was like we were waiting for the game to happen rather than making it happen. And if you do that in this league, you don't win games, and we didn't win.
What are the positives do you take from that game? Is it Darragh Burns' performance, his goal, Corey O'Sullivan, who did really well against Waterford as well, coming in, he's only 18. Are they the kind of things you take out from this game?
There was some positives, but to be fair, I think probably Corey was the main one. Darragh's performance was okay. Scored a good goal, but he was okay. There was lots of other stuff he needs to improve. But I thought young Corey was probably our best player, to be fair. I thought he was excellent.
And massive game now on Thursday evening. There'll be a big crowd here in Tallaght Stadium. It's a chance to get to the group stages and win it here in Tallaght, which hasn't been done before. What do you need to pick up the players for Thursday, or is it such a big game they don't need that? They know what's in front of them.
No, when you play at the level we've played at for a number of years, you know you're going to win games, lose games, draw games. That's the nature of sport and the nature of football. And when you're playing at the level we are, and it's Thursday, Sunday, you're going to win and lose games, and you don't get too high or too low. You just recover and move on, understand what happened, and you get ready for the next one, and that's what we'll do. Today wasn't good enough, didn't deserve to win the game. We refocus, refresh and get ready for a tough game on Thursday. Hopefully we can get a big crowd and make it a special night here on Thursday night. How
different will it be? People will have seen how bad the pitch was out there. It was the same for both teams, but you spoke about having to do things a bit differently. Jackburn didn't play that day. How different do you think maybe the opponents will be playing on this surface, maybe compared to last week?
I'll definitely suit them. They have good players, and as much as it will suit us, of course it will. It'll suit them as well. So, no, it has to make us to be a much better football game because of the surface. But we're not under any illusions that it's only going to suit us. We know it'll suit them as well.
Great. Just that formation, playing two up top. Not an awful lot of teams are doing that. You were going up against a back three that Rovers always play, but you have been playing in the last few games and it's been very successful.
Yeah, and I'll probably spend more time this week worrying about should we do it again here, because we haven't. Because again, everyone talks about how well we generally do against Rovers. We haven't the last couple of games, obviously. So I was a bit worried about probably the second. Obviously, the Rovers played the box in the middle, and you're basically with 3-5-2. You're leaving a 4v3 there, and parts of that for Jack Bourne, Graham Burke, and you're like, geez. So we did have to work a little bit how we would deal with it while still having the 3-5-2, but we figured it out. And that's again, we go back to the two centre forwards about how hard they had to work, because it always had to be the opposite one on the other side. Because as I said, if you leave them so much, like if it's a Jack Bourne or a Burke or anything. If Dylan wants to start, whatever you have to. So we did have to spend an awful lot of time this week considering, again, as I said, with the decent record we have here. Do we go back to that? But we thought there's two things. We thought we'd be able to manage it here. Like again, and sometimes you have to get lucky. Sometimes you have to make last blocks on the line, like Ryan Bennett or whatever. But I always thought the two up top would cause a lot of trouble. But sometimes I don't want this to be like a long bob. We just have to get it up to them. Like if we played tonight, I thought we played some good stuff. We still sometimes just have to get it up or down the side, and I thought they did cause a lot of trouble.
Okay, back to the Premier Division action then. I suppose to McDermott, to summarise my thoughts, does anyone want to win the Premier Division this season? Because since you last recorded, Shell's Derry 0-0. Derry went down 10 men very early in the game. Shell's going to take the initiative. Last weekend, Sligo won 2-1 against Shells, and Derry drew against Dundalk. So, does anyone want to win the League of Ireland this season, Nick?
No, it doesn't seem to. It kind of reminds me of the 2010 League of Ireland, where, well, there was only two teams involved. It was Bohemians and Shamrock Rovers. I think one of the things is you can't have it every way. People were giving out the last few seasons because Rovers ran away with it, and this year they're giving out. I think one of the key things, and it comes down to, if I can bring it back to Drogheda United, I was very impressed with Douglas James Taylor. I could make some various jokes about James Taylor, but I won't. But one of the things, and I did ask Kevin Doherty about it, is that the last four games, Doherty has moved away. He's been playing one up top, mostly 4-2-3-1. But the last four games, he's played two up top. And they've won two games, one in the cup, and drawn two games. I think that's pretty different. And James Taylor was absolutely brilliant. Kind of really led the line, and a really good goal if people saw it. But one of the things is it leaves Drogheda to the bottom side, but they're on 23 points. They're only 2 points off Dundalk. And that's after, what are we, 27 games through? Sorry, they're 22 points, two off Dundalk after 27 games. If you go back, I had a look through the league tables, it's the fact that the league is competitive right down to that bottom side. Yeah. If you go back last year, Cork City had 31 points at the end of the league, but UCD only had 11. The year before that, UCD had 26 points. After 36 games, and Harps had only 20. You go back to 2021, Longford only had 15 points. Ignore the COVID year. 2019, UCD finished with, I think, 14. Harps at 28. 2018, the last time it was 36 game season, Bray only had 18 and Limerick at 27. So after 27 games, there's still 9 games to go. The bottom side, the bottom two sides are going to have more points. I think that's been the difference. And Drogheda, while they were bottom side, came to Tallaght Stadium and deservedly took a point away. And they've done that against other teams. And that's why, I watched the end of the Sligo Rovers Shelbourne game on Saturday night. And, Sligo in a brilliant run of form, and teams, if they can get 2 or 3 points, they basically rocket up the table. But it probably Sunday night was probably a win Rovers really needed. But then again, Shelbourne and Derry keep dropping points. Waterford are going really well, and can Sligo Rovers keep going the way they're going? Like, they're getting some great results and playing really well. They've got some players in a really good form. So while the people giving out about the quality of the league, it's really entertaining.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. This a narrative that goes around about the league being poor and it's a poor standard. I think that's a lot of bunkum, to be honest. I mean, you kind of spelled it out there. Teams are dropping points because it's more competitive at the bottom. You use a whipping boy there, a Longford, no offense, Longford Town fans, or a UCD or a Finn Harps. Yeah. Someone's getting whipped, and you go into the season where you take 12 points off them, and that you're up 12 points. Drogheda are not a whipping boy. Shamrock Rovers found it the other day, drew 1-1. I mean, this kind of, is there maybe a lack of, say, players between the age of 22 and 27 who maybe didn't there previously? Possibly, but that's down to Brexit, that's down to a lot of mitigating factors. But this argument that's a poor league and it's not very good. I mean, I'd point out, look at the European results past, say, 8 years compared to previous 25 years. We're getting more.
Yeah, no, and
that's that's the main. If you look kind of as a scope of where's Irish football at, the results in Europe are better than they were 25 years ago. And like this narrative of there were better years, but they weren't.
The results in Europe, there's still 4 games to go, and we're talking this week where Pats have a good chance of going through because they have that win, and Rovers have a decent enough chance because they're playing at home. They can put in a performance. They could even put in a poor performance and win a match when it's just down to 90 minutes. But the fact that Drogheda United can bring someone in like Douglas James Taylor in from Walsall, like a quality player who's looking for game time, and Dundalk have added to their squad. You look at Tim Clancy was at the game in Tallaght on Sunday night. The fact that he's got Rory Keating and Shiny Maguire in the first division.
I thought he was giving them wage bills. Is he not giving out wage bills?
Oh, well, yeah.
Sorry.
the fact that Galway United have been so competitive, having come up from the division last year, you can't be given out. I did see Brennan Clark, I think, had a piece with maybe Paul O'Hare in the Mirror, and he was debunking it as well.
Yeah, he's right. And it's absolute bullshit, this argument that it's poor league. It's not. You're going against longer than I am, but I'm going against 15 years. And I remember watching some terrible games, like terrible players playing, no offense, but it's compared to standard now. So we're at nearly 8 to 9 professional teams. So it's progressing the right way. Like this argument to put up the people, the standards poor. Anyway, forget about it for a sec. Quick word on Alan Reynolds. Is he in trouble?
They can't change the manager. No, I think they've got 2 games in hand. They're 4 points clear of Dundalk, and they do have 2 games in hand. You'd like to think they'll take a couple of points from that. I think one of those games is against Shamrock Rovers, but they beat them well in the cup. So I think that managerial team, you've got Reynolds and you've got O'Donnell, you have to give them time. And I don't think they're like, it'd be a different situation if they were bottom of the league or something. But no, I think you have to give them time. Is he under pressure? He is under pressure, but I don't think it's pressure for his job.
Another question for you, Dan, right? We're just talking about Shelbourne there in Sligo. Who's had a better season? Okay. Let's say Shels competing for the top award within the league, or Sligo getting into Europe. What do we think is a better season?
To my mind, it's Sligo. Sorry, I say Sligo. Maybe that's a Freudian slip. But to my mind, it's actually Shelbourne, because I don't think anyone realistically thought they would challenge so far into the season for the title. And the title it's not quite theirs to lose, but they're top. They're 2 points clear. They've game in hand, and I won't say they're grinding out results, but the difficulty they have is that they've lost a couple of players. Like the Aidan O'Brien signing is an interesting one.
Caught me off guard, that one.
Yeah, particularly as he's not a. I don't want to call him an Anglo, but he's not someone who grew up in Ireland and is moving home.
Yeah.
He represented Ireland with great pride, but he grew up in England, and so actually he's making the move to play for Shelbourne. So I think it's quite an interesting. I think it's quite an interesting transfer, and he's playing League One up until recently.
And he's at Millwall very recently. Scoring goals at that level.
But they obviously lost some quality in the window as well. So there's a challenge ahead of them. But like there's 10 games to go, and they're in the box seat. And I didn't think Shelbourne would challenge for the league, let alone be where they are.
Yeah.
But Sligo Rovers is obviously, they've been very, 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 very impressive, and John Russell was rightly getting plaudits for what he's done, particularly in this middle to late section of the season.
He's one of the favourites for the chop. That's why I was kind of asking the question.
Yeah,
I kind of maybe should phrase, if Shells don't win the league in the end, say they do come second, and say Sligo come fourth. That's kind of what I was hinting at more. Who's had a better year? Sligo challenging for a title and just falling short, or Sligo, who really everyone's probably one of the favourites to go down. They were in that probably 3 or 2 clubs that everyone thought would struggle this season. John Russell, this time last year, people were calling for his head. So it's quite a turnaround that they're now looking quite strong to finish. And now, yes, of course, Shamrock Rovers and Pats could have a late rally. I don't know. We don't know yet. But like they're at the moment in that 4th spot, and obviously the cup draw, the cup winners goes their way. They're set to qualify for Europe. That's why it's just interesting. Obviously, in terms of Shells, they're still obviously they're top league mentioned there. They're 2 points clear, but they are stuttering. It's quite they are stuttering. Yeah. I don't know whether it's that jitters or just loss of form at the wrong time, or but there's still time obviously to turn it around to make sure that they do finish the season strong. Yeah,
like they've only lost 4 games, and they've only let in what is it? Just looking at the table here. Yeah, they've let in 17 goals. So they're the best defensive record in the league, and that's given them a platform. We've talked before about the number of games that they've won once they've gone in front, the number of games that they've won just by a clear goal. But yeah, if Shells finish second and Sligo Rovers finish third, guaranteeing themselves Europe, depending on who wins the cup or whatever, I think you'd be probably saying that the Sligo Rovers would be a better season.
Yeah, we have a bit of audio actually from the weekend's game between Shells and Sligo. Our reporter Donald Rhymes of the game and call it with Damien Duff. Let's have a listen.
Damien Duff, can you talk me through that this evening?
It's disappointing goals that we give away.
You won't win any game giving away goals like that. So it was always going to be a uphill battle. Outside the goals that we give away, I thought we had an awful lot of control in the game. Deservedly got back into the game. But like I said, it's real disappointment because it's so characteristic how we've let the goals away.
Obviously Shelbourne had a lot of ball, particularly in the second half, but couldn't really make that possession count. What does that come down to, do you think?
Well, obviously Sligo are defending for their lives. They're protecting a 2-1 lead, so it's always hard. I thought we huffed and we puffed and got an awful lot of attacking players on the pitch, but it wasn't enough.
Probably a bit unfortunate the manner in which the goals were conceded as well.
Yeah, awful. Not like our guys. We're built on a real defensive structure, and very, very strange. They took my breath away, to be fair. So that's not us.
We talked before the game, Damien, about how busy the last month has been for Shelbourne between Europe and the Cup and the League as well. Balancing all that is a tough gig. Do you think that that's kind of taken a toll on things now between the scoreless draw on Monday and the defeat here tonight?
No, I think our guys still looked fresh. They got around the pitch really well. They can't, like I said, the goals that we gave away, 2 sucker punches at difficult times in the game. So here you'll never hear me complain about having loads of games and travelling around Europe.
Harry Wood came off there with a bit of a knock there towards the end of the game. Is he alright?
He's fine, he's just cramp. H is a wonderful player. Probably still getting up to 100% fitness, but no, he's fine.
And ultimately, Damien, unfortunately for Shelbourne, it is a chance missed to put some daylight between yourselves and Derry City at the top.
It is a chance missed, and at some point you're going to have to take control of it and jump on these chances that you're given. We haven't done it tonight, but we'll be ready and waiting for the next one.
Damien, thanks very much.
Cheers, thank you.
Macdara, before we let you go, just I suppose looking ahead to Thursday, we were talking about obviously earlier on. Do you fancy Rovers to do it?
The form is so up and down. Like they came back from the defeat in Prague where they played really well, scored a couple of goals, and then won down in Waterford. They were made work hard, but Graham Burke got a goal later on. So they've been quite reliant on Johnny Kenny this season, and the fact that he's injured, he's not going to be available on Thursday. They've signed Mark McNulty. He came off the bench on Sunday against Strada. He had one chance which he kind of took it around the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper forced him wide, and the chance got snuffed out. But Aaron Green's been playing really, really well. I'd be a lot more confident if Johnny Kenny was available, but he's not. But you're kind of hoping, can Jack Byrne put in a performance that people around the league know that he can put in to maybe just open up Selje. But I think it's less than a 50-50 shot. But the fact that it's 90 minutes or maybe 120 minutes, to overcome Selje, it's just a 1-goal deficit. They certainly can do it. The issue is, they're coming on the back of another poor performance. We heard from Stephen Bradley there earlier. We pretty much called out his players for a really bad performance. Now, the stakes are really, really high. So you'd like to hope that'll motivate them on Thursday night. Players like Darragh Burns, players like Neil Ferrugia, that attacking talent that they have, that could get them over the line. Dylan Watts has been playing particularly well recently as well. So, Bradley had made 6 changes, I think it was, for that Drogheda game from the match in Slovenia. So I expect it'll be a number of changes as well from the Drogheda game, because it's a make or break game for this side for this season.
Yeah. Macdara, we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Yeah, take it easy.
Obviously this weekend is FAI Cup action. Obviously myself and Macdara have a weekend off. We won't have any fixtures to enjoy in the FAI Cup. Unfortunately, we're both out, but anyway. But we do have European football, Macdara, so it's okay. We do have European football to enjoy. Usher night, we'll be back with the Voice Notes podcast, European specials. Should be in your news for your podcast feed for Friday morning. Until then, we'll chat to you next week.